Well, it's a year, of course, since the elections here in the Isle of Man. We're talking to all the educators who take up the offer anyway of having a chat with us. Clare Bettison today, Douglas East. Second attempt, you entered the by-election, and then, of course, you got it, and you topped the polls. I mean, first of all, was that a surprise? Because Chris Roberts-Shaw being the old guard there.
Yeah, it was a surprise, not only because, of course, Chris Roberts-Shaw was the old guy, but I think we had a really strong pool of candidates. I mean, you know, there certainly wasn't just a couple of us, and a very diverse range of candidates, a good mix of women and men, and people from all walks of life, which I think was a really positive message, actually, for people to have that choice. And I think it would be great if we could see that replicated across the island next time.
What was your main selling point? I'm asking everyone that. You know, when you were knocking those doors, did you have that thing that stood out, do you think?
Yeah, I talked a lot about health, obviously. That was my background, working as a nurse. And also just about breaking down the perception of the old boys club and making it a more real parliament, I think, because I think that had been the perception. It had been somewhat inaccessible. There was a seeming lack of desire to tackle some of those issues, such as the abortion issue, for example, which had sat on the back burner for a huge length of time, and now has been brought to the forefront, and we're really moving forward with that.
Was it, or has it lived up to expectations as a job?
Yeah, I always knew it would be difficult. I certainly wasn't under any misapprehension with that. I didn't think it was going to be a walk in the park. I knew the hours were going to be long. They are, and they're very varied. You know, I'd spent my whole life working 3 12-hour shifts a week and having 4 days off, travelling around and doing all sorts of other stuff, and that's totally changed. So, you know, it's every day. I feel the first thing I do every morning, 7 days a week, check my emails, because if someone's got a problem that is urgent, I want to pick up if something's cropped up overnight. And then obviously keeping on top of that all day, picking up different issues and doing all the preparation work for the departments I'm in and the Tim Alden and House of Keys work.
And remind us all how many boards you're on and different seats have you got?
So I sit in Department of Health and Social Care and Department of Home Affairs, but I'm also Vice Chairman of the Post Office, Vice Chairman of the Tim Alden Advisory Council for Disabilities, and then there's a few of the committees that I sit on as well, although some of them are coming to a close, so that's a bit of a transient thing, because some of them are quite short, some are a bit longer, some are very labour intensive, some less so. So it really does vary, and until you get on a committee, you're sometimes not sure.
Okay, well, health is the sort of hot potato as such. Come on then, let's be honest. How are you and the department getting on?
Health was never going to be easy. I mean, I've worked in it for long enough to realise that it wasn't a quick fix.
You sit on the other side, of course.
Absolutely, and I'm still, very much in contact with people who are working on the floor. I still do voluntary, a little bit of life support training up at the hospital just to keep my skills up in that and to keep my ear to the ground, because I think that's really important. And I think that having worked in health, there was a feeling that had stopped. People didn't really know what was really the case on the floor. And I certainly think that that's changed. I think we're far more receptive to listening to what people are actually saying and what's going on. But it's a big challenge, and we're trying to do that within a constrained budget. We haven't got as much money as we perceive we probably need per capita, and we're trying to make that work, because what we don't want to do is cut services. In fact, there's things we'd like to introduce. We think we're actually missing the gaps in the market as such. For example, the thrombolysis has been heavily talked about. That's something I was aware of before being elected, and my opinion hasn't changed. I don't think we can have a stroke service that's part-time. You can't say strokes can only happen 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. That's not viable. So that's something we need to invest in. But at the same time, we've got this 11 million that we need to save. And that's a challenge, because we've got a finite budget, but sometimes things happen. We might have patients who need to be transferred off island for conditions that are very expensive to treat, and we're paying for that service at another hospital, and we are very much bound by the charges that they levy against us. And if that happens, we pay it, and we then have to worry about how we budget it afterwards. Okay. So it's very much a movable feast, and we're trying to work with that as we go. You
got caught up in, one of the controversies of our time, this letter and Mr. Couch and all that sort of thing. Any regrets, any changes, or do you think it was handled well?
I think, as with all these things, you're trying to get a level of transparency, but you're also trying to make sure that you don't compromise people's positions while you're working with them. And ultimately, we're a group of people who need to have a positive working relationship. And that's what we have now, actually. We move forward, we meet up regularly, we're meeting up every 2 weeks, all of us. We have the department meetings, we also have our divisional meetings, and I definitely feel that there's a really good dialogue now going on, and we are making changes, looking at things, really pulling that information together to be able to make informed decisions with regard to Department of Health and Social care.
Okay, 1 year down, I mean, you find your feet and all that sort of thing. This is sort of probably the go-get year, and before you know it, everyone will start to be campaigning again, you know. How do you see your next year going?
I think that...
Have you got big things you want to put forward? I mean, you know.
I'm going to be seconding the abortion bill as it comes forward, which I seconded the leave to introduce for Dr. Allinson. I'm delighted to be at the forefront of that.
Surprised about the reaction that's been causing from the party camps?
No, I think it was expected, and I respect people's opinions, both sides of the board actually, and I think the whole point is it's pro-choice. We're not forcing anyone into, you know, either having an abortion or not having an abortion. I think that was important, and I'm very pleased with the way that the bill's actually been pulled together. I think that was, you know, pretty much pitched where it should be, to provide those safeguards, but also to make sure that we're not failing people who need to access what is essentially a health service.
Okay, so you got that. Anything else you got your eyes on?
Obviously continuing the work with health and social care, assuming that there's no big reshuffles. I mean, you just never know.
Oh, there's going to be a reshuffle. I mean,
so
I'm pretty sure that someone's going to be moving around. Would you like to move around? I mean, you happy where you are?
I'm happy with the roles I've got, but you know, equally I do appreciate the value of a reshuffle. I think there's a balance, isn't there? Because you spend your time really finding your feet and building up those working relationships, really getting to understand the nuances of a department, and you then feel you're starting to really add value. But equally, fresh eyes bring something new. So I think there's a balance between a reshuffle and how quickly you do that, looking at who you're moving and why. So I think it's very strategic, and you know, I don't pretend to be involved in that. I mean, certainly we just wait and we hear all these whisperings on the grapevine.
Okay, well, let me try this one. Do you fancy the job of a minister?
Not at the minute.
Okay, do you see yourself as a career politician now then?
No, I've been very clear.
Will you stand again? I mean, in other words, I know it's a bit early, but...
Yeah, if I don't feel I'm achieving what I set out to achieve, which was to try and provide some reform to the health service within the 5 years, then I will not stand again, because I don't think that's fair to the people. I made a commitment, that's why I stood, and if I'm not getting there and I don't feel I'm making the changes, my name won't be on the ballot paper. Okay,
give it a rating. I mean, out of your performance, out of 10, what do you think you've done so far out of 10?
I think probably a 7 out of 10. I think that there's things where I'm not getting them done because there's blocks in the way, and I'm still working out how you find your way around those blocks and how you find the right people and work with the right people to move forward. And I think that's a learning curve, but I certainly think that I'm contributing a good amount. I'm making sure all the papers are read. I'm doing the full level of scrutiny and challenging those decisions that are being made to make sure that they're made at the right level, they're made appropriately. And I think that's a very important part of what we do.
The government as a whole, how do you score that out of 10?
Again, I think we're probably around a 7. I think we can't ever be complacent. I think we've got big challenges. We're certainly not in the era of having lots of money rolling around and being able to do everything we fancy. And in an ideal world, wouldn't that be great? But we're not there. So we've got to be prudent. We've got to make tough decisions, and some of those are going to be unpopular. And I certainly... in an ideal world, I wouldn't be having charges go up, and I wouldn't see people having to pay for additional things. That's not the ideal at all. But we've also got to be realistic, and we've got to look at a balance. And I think we've seen that with lots of things that we've made decisions on since we've been in post.
Any regrets?
Not yet.
Fair enough. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.